Today we're going to have a chat about creating a better digital customer experience. I'm really excited. We've got Alex Cleanthus here, the co-founder and director of Web Profits Digital Growth Consultancy, and also Chris Hexton. Now, Chris, I'm excited to have both of you on board. But Chris, I've only just met you. I've known Alex for way too long, and I love him like a brother. We've worked a lot together, so it's quite fun. But Chris, I've only just met you, and you're the co-founder of a company called Vero, where you create better customer experiences. And I was really lucky to actually watch you do a talk the other day at a growth marketing morning put on by Web Profits, and I've got to say your message about creating better customer experiences was brilliant, and you actually focused on a digital point, and we'll talk about that a little bit today. Yeah. Because what we want to get out of today is we want to share your story, what you've done, what you've experienced, and hopefully if there's a business owner out there or a leader or a manager of some sort who's in this position that has to grow in this space, that you can offer some help. And same with you, Alex. You're an absolute genius at what you do. You've inspired so many people from a digital growth space. So let's have a chat. But Chris, I might get you to introduce yourself, give me a little bit about yourself, and then we'll hand it over to Alex as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm one of the founders of a company called Vero. We are a messaging suite. So we help online businesses or businesses that have a large online presence message their customers. And historically for us, it was 100% about email, but these days we also do mobile push, and then soon, SMS and other channels as well. So covering the full gamut. And for most of our customers, it's where they centralize all of their customer data and then all of their messaging as well. So they're enabling, their marketing team, product team, as well as their engineering team to work together to have high quality messages sent to their customers, basically.
Yep.
We've been around for just over 6.5 years now, headquartered here in Australia. We've got a team of about 16, 17 people. About half of those are in Australia, and then the other half are fully remote all over the world.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been really fun. Love what I do. Lucky to enjoy what I do. 9 days out of 10 at least, and certainly have learnt a lot of things along the way. Some of them slower than I would have liked, but it's all good.
Yep. Nice.
So we met 4 years ago?
Yeah, I think so.
4.5 years ago.
Yeah, I have no idea when that was.
So that was in Estonia. Yeah. So we met in Estonia.
Yeah.
I went there for a conference.
Crazy, yeah.
Crazy conference.
For 3 days.
And
from Australia.
For 3 days.
Yeah.
Was it a 3-day conference? Yeah, it was a 3-day conference.
I think so, yeah.
And I spent a day on either side. But I remember actually, I was there and I heard this Australian guy stand up and talk about some pretty cool stuff with email marketing. And I was like, oh my God, another Australian in Estonia?
Yeah.
It's I think that must be the second one.
What are the odds,
What are the odds?
Yeah.
And so we chatted back then. But that must mean that at the time, the company was only 2 years old, or 2.5 years old. Is that right?
Well, if that was 4 years ago, then yeah. I think it probably was 2015, that conference. Yeah. We would have been around 2.5 years old.
Yeah, cool. And so that must mean that you grew pretty fast in that kind of the first 2 years, right?
Yeah. We had
if you were there and the stuff which you were already speaking about at the time.
Yeah. I think we definitely, we did really well, or we were really lucky in the first few years. We concentrated really hard on our content marketing, and that's how I got introduced to Pep and his crew who were running the conference, and they were kind enough to invite me to speak at that.
Is it Pep from Conversion XL?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think that content marketing, got us doing a lot of good partnership stuff with people like Pep, and that's how the opportunity came along, despite us being so young.
Yep.
But we did, we had a really good first few years. We bootstrapped the company for the first 5 years, so that's a slightly unusual path, and something that I think was a great thing to do, great decision, bred a lot of good values within the company, and so we couldn't have done that without some good growth early on. So
right. And so that must mean that you started the company and you focused on content marketing. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
You focused on content marketing, and through content marketing you got your growth.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And sorry, Tony, because I'm just jumping in straight into this right now.
This is the disclaimer. They're going to say technical stuff about internet, and I'll get lost straight away. So I'll be that person that will come and go, "What does that mean?" Perfect.
But because you bootstrapped it for 5 years.
Yep.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
And so you're a developer by craft.
By craft,
right? By craft, trade.
Yeah, by trade. Yeah,
by trade.
I didn't study engineering. Yep. But I can write some code.
Just a quick one. How many of the good coders out there actually studied engineering and studied coding? In your opinion, because really, I that's not my strength for sure.
Yeah, I think times are changing a bit. Probably in all professions. In that, maybe people look a little less at the exact degree that you've got when hiring for a role. I will say that that I know how to write a bit of code, but certainly now that our company is a bit older and wiser, there's an awful lot you do learn when you study engineering and really appreciate and understand the concept. So actually, I would be a proponent to say that the great engineers, they really know their stuff, and that comes from both experience, particularly experience scaling things, but then also education. Yeah. So I would actually, maybe that's a slightly contrarian view, but I think
that's the Switzerland view. I think you said it's both. Yeah. It's both studying and experience.
No, I think you wouldn't want to say to someone you have to have a degree. I think that's not true anymore.
Yeah.
But equally, as someone who doesn't have a degree, if you said to me, go and build Google, be like, thanks for coming. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, Chris, you've got an interesting path, actually. You started off at PwC back in 2006 and went to 2011. Then you actually co-founded another company. It was around for a year. It was called Semblance. What was that about?
Yeah, so I used to work at Price Waterhouse, and my current business partner, James, and I, both, he didn't work at PwC, he worked somewhere else. And I don't know, I think we both wanted to do our own things. So I know that. I can't quite remember the complete catalyst for both of us deciding to quit and start our own thing.
Was it out of frustration, or was it a desire to do something different?
I decided to do something different. I think I just worked out that PwC wasn't where I wanted to spend my full career. It's a great place, actually. I only have very positive things to say about it. But having worked that out, I thought, well, if I'm not going to stay here throughout my career, I think now's a good time. I'd been there for essentially 2.5 years over a 4-year period. I'd started there straight out of school. And so the next few years looked, quasi-similar to the previous 4. Yep. So it felt like, if I'm not going to stick it out the long term, I'm not going to stick around these next few years. And so it definitely wasn't frustration. It was more wanting to do something.
So you're saying you walked into PwC straight after school?
Yeah, they do this thing called a cadetship.
Yep.
They hire you when you're 18, and you do study at nighttime after work, and you work 5 days a week. Yeah.
Wow.
For the first 2.5 years, and then you go back to uni just full-time for 1.5 years. Yeah.
Wow, it's such a great way of getting into it. Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that must mean that you did pretty good at school. I did all right. If they offered you a cadetship.
Yeah.
I didn't do that well at school personally. But only because I stopped caring, when I was 16.
No, I cared a lot.
Yeah. No, I can tell. That's really cool.
Yeah, so going from there, and then when you actually went with your mate there, and you started Semblance.
Yep.
Tell me about that. What did you want to do? What was the product you wanted to create, or what was the vision that you had around that?
Oh, well, Semblance came about because we didn't really have a great direction, and so we just said, well, what can we do? I mean, James had studied software engineering, so he's a software engineer, and I could code a bit and wanted to get better.
Yep.
And so we just said, what can we do? We could build stuff for other people. And so that's what we started doing. We were really lucky. We met a couple of great mentors who helped connect us as subcontractors with our first work. And then it grew from there just organically. We did those jobs. Someone else said.
So tell me about your first contract. So I think anybody who goes into business for the first time, getting the first contract is happy days. It's like you've actually achieved something. You've got an idea, you've got a concept, and now somebody else has believed in it and gone, we're going to fund that.
Yeah. Oh, no, in this case, it was more. So someone else had the idea and they were paying us to build the thing.
So you reacted to somebody else's desires.
They just wanted to hire someone to get the job done. And we were lucky. We had a mentor who had his own web consultancy, and they were growing really well. And so they needed someone to do some work for them. Yep. And so he got us involved, and then that was great because then we had some work, a portfolio at that point we could point to, and that's how we got the next job.
And so your first business then was like an agency style
exactly,
thing. So it was an hourly rate.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a service business, and I hesitate to use the word agency because we only had 2 of us, so very small scale.
Oh, well, there's thousands of agencies out there with 2 people.
Sure.
Or one person out there these days, So, but
I don't want to talk it up. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, it was just the 2 of us.
You're a very humble person, Chris. That's what we love about you. You are absolutely humble as. So you go in there, you get a few contracts under your belt, and then what happens? Because Semblance only lasts for a year, and then you go into Vero.
Well, yeah, I mean, we applied for StartMate, which is an incubator that is based in Australia, but has now funded some companies from Singapore and other places as well. But they run it in Sydney and Melbourne, and back when we did it was just in Sydney. And so basically they pick, X companies, we'll say about 8, 9, 10 companies per cohort, and they invest a very small amount of money in them. It was 25 grand back in our day. And to get into that program, you have to pitch a product. So we pitched a product that wasn't Vero. We pitched a product that was called Invoice Me, and essentially it was a very lightweight invoicing, comparable to FreshBooks or Xero, with 1% of the functionality.
So like Zoho invoice kind of thing.
Yeah, more like that. Exactly.
Yeah.
And we did that really because I had built that for our agency because I was an accountant who was learning to code, and it was a logical thing to build as an internal tool.
So your background is in accountancy?
Yeah, I was about to jump on that too.
Yeah.
So you were an accountant at PwC.
Yeah. Oh, well,
not a computer programmer.
No, I studied accounting.
Yeah.
And at PwC, I worked in their IT risk division, which means you audit IT systems to try and work out if they're risky or not. Because if they are risky, it's more likely that the financial numbers will be wrong.
Okay.
But it wasn't. I never wrote code at PwC. It was still systems audits.
Okay, so you're a kind of a founder that's like a combination, which I've never heard of before. Actually, accounting and development.
Well, it's good. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty interesting.
I mean, definitely having an accounting degree has been very helpful.
Especially, and we'll come back to how that's actually affected you since the funding round. But I think, but just to come back to the reason you started Vero, like you were talking about, StartMate.
Yeah, and
it's called Invoice Me.
Yeah, so we pitched that and we got in with it. Thank you, StartMate. They clearly didn't do it for the product. I think they must have believed that James and I would work well together and had proved that we could build something together and build things for other people. So we got into that and that was great. So it's about a 3-4 month program basically, and there's a huge array of mentors, awesome people who are giving their time and resources to help you get started. So very quickly, I would say, in that program, we worked out that Invoice Me was certainly divisive. I think 50% of the mentors thought it was the worst idea in the world, and the other 50%, I think, politely felt that it had a shot at, mostly because...
I like how you say politely. I was like, we'll give these kids a crack. Go on.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know that I think the only logic they could have had is that it is a product that every business needs. So the market is, the TAM's infinite, essentially. But, I mean, it's also highly competitive. Xero was growing like a weed at that time. Xero is a very, mature product that solves some real problems, things like doing your payroll, connecting to your bank accounts. We had none of that. And so I think they're being polite. But it didn't take us long to work out that we just couldn't find customers for it. We couldn't even find people who wanted to do customer development. And really, upon self-reflection, I mean, we hadn't designed that to solve a problem. The problem we were solving was me getting better at code, basically.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so that's not a good thing to found business. So
look, I think oftentimes people start a business just to start a business, to learn a few things out, and I think
definitely us. 100%.
Yeah, it sounds like, but like, I guess if you think about actually how innovation works, right? Like I was actually having a conversation about this the last few days. It's like you start something. Yeah. There's a bunch of problems. Yeah. You fix some problems. Yeah. There's more problems. You fix more problems. And then that's kind of the background of innovation. It sounds like that's how you're starting, like, hey, I think I'll start a business. Yeah. And like you went into, I'll sell my time, and then you went to actually I'll create a product, and then actually like this product's not very good.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually really, that is the exact summary of what happened. Yeah, it was very organic, and it was just, so we want to start a business. What can we do? Well, we've got some skills. We can charge for those. Okay, we want to do a product, create some product, which would be the first problem, learn how to do that. Do that, not very good. Now try and find something that finds a market. I think there are positives and negatives to doing it that way. But I do think that, it's just a ladder of sorts. Yep. And at each stage, you have more confidence that you could, excel at the next stage or have a crack at the next stage, having conquered the one before.
So how did you get to Vero? That's the big question, right? Like, so like how did that come about? Because obviously that was like the one that kind of scored, you know?
Sure. Yeah. I think we knew definitely by the end of StartMate, that we weren't going to keep doing Invoice Me. And we ended up taking, I don't know, you'd have to ask Nikki or some of the mentors there. They might have a better memory than me. But my memory is that we took some time out, like a couple of weeks, maybe even a month, James and I, and like we both traveled a bit, and we came back together, and the first question was, well, do we want to keep working together? And the answer to that was yep. And then the second question was, well, what are we actually going to do? And we had some inklings of ideas, and we'd both written down in that time off, ideas or concepts of ideally real problems that we'd seen, had some exposure to, and that we felt we could build a business around.
I'm interested. What did you guys actually see? What were some of the problems that came up?
Oh, that's very, very much testing my memory. I honestly can't remember any other one other than Vero. I know that I can remember that, a lot of the ideas we had were very dev-centric or technologist-centric. So we wanted to build product that other technologists would buy. And in the end, Vero actually is a product bought predominantly by marketers, but I can come back to that.
Yep.
And so in the end, this product, the very germ of the idea had come out of us being asked to code automated messaging sequences for our prior customers when we were running the agency. And I think, we'd only been asked to do it a handful of times, but we sort of questioned why we were being asked to do it at all with time on the clock. Why is there not a product here?
Yep.
So we did some research, and there's obviously MailChimp, and then beyond that, the tools that really had the automation were Responsis, Salesforce, Exact Target it was called at the time, now called Salesforce Marketing Cloud. And good products in their own right, but they were very big end of town, very enterprise, heavy sales cycle, heavy consulting arm to both of those as well, helping people actually do the campaigning. So we thought there must be some happy medium, and that's where we started to explore. And then through StartMate, obviously we'd met a lot of mentors who had their own businesses. That was helpful.
Yep.
And then we'd met a few people trying to do customer development for the first thing that ran digital businesses. So we went back to all of them and we asked them if they'd speak to us. And the first difference to the first business is that people were happy to speak to us about this problem.
Yep.
And so we had those conversations, and they were really positive. They were saying, well, definitely automating messages and personalizing messages is something we want to do. And it feels important to us as a digital business. And if your tool can help us do that and does what it says you can do, then we'd pay for it. Unfortunately, some of them did pay for it, because I think it's easy to say that, but harder for it to happen.
So you went out and actually interviewed people about
proper
their
customer
problems.
development.
Proper customer development.
Yeah, because I think StartMate had taught us the rigor of go do that. Yeah.
How many companies do you think actually, just go out and do proper customer development?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if we would have as early without StartMate. Yeah, definitely it taught us that, I suppose time is money in a sense, but it's very easy as an engineer, and you can even see that, as I said, the ideas we had were all about selling technology to technologists. It's easy to just say, I want to build something that's cool, it's fun.
Yeah. And
that's how people get into the trap of not doing customer development. And we still get into the trap of it now. I mean, it's easy to get excited about some big idea.
What was something, because when I look at customer development, I look, the first person that pops into my mind is Richard Branson when he started off with Virgin and that, and he was getting customer feedback of what they wanted on an airline, why it worked, why it didn't work. And he actually he still does it now. He's got a little notepad and he takes notes of what's working, what's not, got that feedback. And that's how basically the organisation is flourished through feedback like that. So did you have a similar experience when you're going around and talking to these people, going like, what's not working? How can I solve your problems? Or what were the conversations like?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think that's the classic, what are your problems? And obviously we were asking them with a very specific domain. We were trying to verify this idea of taking a rich stream of customer data, I can come back to that, and then having an interface that less technical people could design automations and send messages on the other side. Would that be solving a problem and trying to understand the problem? And so, the questions are around, what are you actually trying to achieve? Why is it important to you? You're trying to grow, you're trying to coordinate your messages. And it's honestly very hard to remember back then, so I'll end up using a lot of the lingo I would use today. But I think at the time, we wouldn't have had the understanding that I have now. It still would have been very fledgling. It's still winging it, right? Even despite the conversation. To a great degree. Or not winging it, but maybe not appreciating the full extent of what you're asking or what you're going to start building.
But that's normal, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
You have an inkling of where you're going to go.
Yeah.
But how it actually transpires is another thing altogether.
Absolutely.
I mean, you'd have that as well in your business, or you would have had that in the beginning.
Which part's that? Which one?
Well, you think you know what direction you're going into, but stuff creeps up. Like new problems come in, you change your product a little bit, you change your service a little bit to suit the demands of the market.
Yeah,
I suppose,
I think just on that point there, I think when you're selling your time, there's a much higher it's much higher margin of error. If you have to go and build software that's going to take you 6 months and you build the wrong thing, right? It's just that's like that basically like 6 months dead, right?
Yeah.
But so I think where I could be way more
loop.
There's a faster feedback loop. Like if someone is paying you money, because they're going to be like, "Oi, what's that
We're not
thing?"
paying this much.
But I guess how open were people to actually answering your questions, or what were some of the tricks in actually, just getting people to actually talk to you? Because I know these people are probably pretty busy. You're trying to figure out like, hey, is this thing something which you want?
Yeah.
How did you get them to actually say, yeah, I'll spend 5 minutes with you on the phone?
Yeah. I mean,
if you remember, do you remember?
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I think two things. I mean, we had been through StartMate, and certainly half the people we spoke to were directly from that network. So they're either other mentors or companies from the prior year. So they obviously wanted to help us straight out of the gate. So that's why
that's great. Okay, so how about the other half?
And then the other half, I think, so there's an extra degree or two of separation there. And I honestly, I think the contrarian answer or the honest answer is there's no trick. And I think that's what we learned between Vero and what we did before with Invoice Me, is that people were actually happy to talk for 5 minutes. And that's the trick. It's like, if you're actually going to solve a problem, if I actually say to you, hey, I want to talk to you, Tony, about automating your customer messages or personalizing the messaging you're sending your customers.
Yep.
If you don't care, it's going to be much harder to get you on the phone. But if you're sitting there going, that's actually a problem we have in our business, and even if you're not in charge of it, you might go, well, I know that, Jess was talking about that last week. It's a real problem for us. Have a chat to her and she'll want to talk to me because she's got the problem. So the answer is, if you're getting 99% of the time you're getting knocked back, it's probably not a big enough problem.
Yeah, I found, because I'd heard, I think it was a book or I read somewhere, maybe it was Bill Gates. It could have been like an Instagram quote for all I know at this point, right?
Sure, yeah.
But you get the best insight by actually talking to the customers who are most upset, and just actually to have those conversations. And for years I was like, scared of calling the customers that are upset, because you don't want to have it like a bad conversation, especially like if you're like a beginner in business and you're like, let me just not have the hard conversation. Let me focus on the happy conversations instead, right?
Yeah.
And with time, I started actually having some of these harder conversations.
Yeah.
And the insight was awesome.
Yeah.
Like it was like, oh, wow, okay, I can totally see that's a problem.
Yeah.
And we can now start to solve the common issues. And so it feels like it'd be something similar where if you're talking to people's problems, they're going to be very open sharing.
Yeah.
Like, because someone is actually there to listen, right? Yeah. And so I think people are generally scared to have maybe harder conversations sometimes, but that's where there's like some gold.
Totally. I think that's a really good point. And as we've gotten older as a business and done more sales, which is something that I've learned a lot about. We had one of the guys on our team has been in sales for years. But one of the things he said is, people get themselves into a trap with sales where they're just hoping that customer that might be worth 10K a month is going to come off. So they just keep it there in the pipeline and they just sort of move it around. Maybe it'll close one day. But the trick is really to ask the questions to disqualify it as quickly as possible. Like, you want the bad news now, and what you're saying is the same as that. And then I think it's Bezos or someone who, stress is, you get stressed when there's a problem you're not doing something about. I think that's what the quote is, but that's what sticks in my mind.
Yeah, sure.
So if there's a problem and you're not doing something about it, you're going to be stressed because your heart knows you need to do something about that.
Yep.
And not having those hard conversations is a form of, not even discovering the problem, because that you're going to cause yourself stress if you discover the problem and do something about it. But as you're saying, if you don't do that, then you get absolutely nowhere. And I think that actually gets harder as the company gets bigger. If you've got some momentum, the last thing you want is to find out that either the momentum's in the wrong direction, the momentum's going to have a ceiling, or the momentum's about to stop. They're all very scary, equally as scary as if you have nothing.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct, and I totally agree with that. As long as you've got momentum, it doesn't matter what direction it's in, whether it's forwards, backwards, or whatever, as long as you're moving, because you're learning in every area there. And the problem that people have this when they come from a fear base, where they'll actually go into freeze and they'll do nothing and they'll just get so numb and they won't be able to move forward, backwards, or anything. And the worst thing, and you've mentioned mentors a lot, and I really want to drill down on that later on, because I think it's a healthy thing, because when you were going through hard patches in your business, how many times did you rely on a mentor to pull you out of a state of mind or an emotional state to get you some momentum?
Yeah, well, probably every time. I think that, and that's why it's great to have a co-founder. When times are tough, you lean on them.
Yep.
For that same reason. That's why it's great to have mentors. And these days, as the company's a bit bigger, it's great to have a bunch of team members around you who are equally sharing the weight, and you can look after each other when things are a bit tough. But I think that's really, really important. I don't know if that answers. I think there was more to your question. But
no, that's pretty.
I definitely think. Obviously, mentorship is both a emotionally a great thing, and then also a way to shortcut your learning, hopefully. Having mentors who have done what you're doing before is awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question then on that. Like, if I may, so what do you define as a mentor? You just have interest, because like depending on who you speak to, there's like kind of what everyone thinks is a mentor, which is like I'm going to meet with one person and they're going to just show me the guiding light.
Yeah,
is that what you call a mentor, or like how would you define mentors?
Yeah. I don't think I think mentors come in all different types. Well, that doesn't quite make sense, but it's not
different shapes and forms.
It's not a seniority thing, and it's not even necessarily a has done everything you've done before thing. I think for me, it's someone who will be honest with me, so they're going to give me real talk.
Yep.
And then it's someone who, is perhaps an expert in their field, which could be completely disparate to mine, but it means they've been thinking about something really in depth, and so they're going to bring something fresh that I haven't thought of. Someone who cares about you is important as well. I think a good mentor actually wants to mentor. So that's important as well. So I don't know, they're probably the three things that seem consistent, but then, mentors, a bunch of our team are mentors to me. A lot of the StartMate people who have built bigger businesses, they're mentors. And then all sorts of people you meet along the way.
Yeah, because I know, Alex, you've got at Web Profits as well, where you've got like a mentoring system. It's the pairing system that you have and budding up, and it's pretty similar to that. How do you actually, pair people up at Web Profits to work on similar projects? So, and you might want to explain the process that you go through with your guys. Yeah,
so it's a pairing. I think it started off in software development actually, and it's kind of like a way to reduce the errors and improve quality. Yeah, so the two people that sit behind the one computer, and there's like an observer and there's like a doer, and so that way they can actually programming. And so we did kind of like a similar thing here.
Awesome.
For tasks, and so there's always a person that's senior and a person that's a bit more junior, or there's people that have complementary skills across channels, and that's how they work, right? And we find that that's the best way to share knowledge, because it's on campaigns specifically.
Totally.
And it's also a good way to, in an informal way, just get people collaborating and actually talking to each other, because it's very easy, especially in the digital world, to just be on your computer, to not even look up, and to not speak, right? And so there's that part of it as well, that we find
every
super
task,
helpful.
Every task.
Not every task, but like it's a way for some tasks, So there's a certain amount of hours a week that everybody should be pairing.
Okay.
There's a component where people actually have to just get their work done.
Of course.
There's also some parts where it's a bit harder, say for example on strategic development, or if I'm doing something for the first time, I will probably have someone there that has done it before, and so there's times to do it, We found that there was always like a balance, because in the beginning we paired on everything, but then you didn't get all the small things done.
Yeah, of course.
And so then there's kind of trying to find that balance here. So it's like a mentorship kind of thing, but it's more like a skill sharing thing as well. It's a skill sharing thing, and it's a way to kind of reduce problems and improve quality.
Yeah, I like that. And this is one thing, and I think both of you will see this. When it comes to mentoring, I think what's really, it is important that you identify a certain mentor for a certain skill set. So you'll have one for whether it's technical or something, but also I look at mentors. I have different mentors, one for my emotional state, one for my psychological state, and then also from a skill set sort of state. So I think you can't just have one. There's not going to be one fits all, because there's, how many times do you have it where you sit down with an idea of where you think you're being brilliant, and whatever it is, maybe your motives are not in the right place, so your ego's overcome, and you have that one person go, hey guys, just chill out for a minute. I think you've got your focus way off the radar at the moment. Let's get you back in check. Have you ever had anything like that ever happen to you?
I don't know. I feel like
I like how Alex is just throwing you under the bus now.
No. Well, I was just going to ask
all the time.
Tony a question, right? So with the emotional mentor, that's something which I haven't considered before. Like, so what is that? Like, is that a person? Like, is that who you talk to? Is that like a friend? Is it a partner? Is it a professional?
100%.
Like what's that one? Because I know
it can be anybody. Look, it can be normally. It could be your partner at home, which is really good to tap into, because they're going to know your emotional reactions, your feelings to certain things, and sometimes you need to hear every now and then to say, oh man, I had this thing the other day, and you're deciding how to answer something from an emotional base, and it's not going to be the best one because it might not be the best reaction that you have. So you go in and you check in. So I'll go in and check with my partner, and I'll go, hey, look, I've had this. It's really annoyed the living day, and what I really want to do is this, this, and this. And I go, hold on a second. All right. And it's great. It's the best thing that can ever happen. And then you check in. And as you said, Chris, you actually said it really well before. You need somebody who you trust and you respect as well, especially in an emotional sense. Now, in saying that as well, there's no problem. You could ring up a lifeline or a counselling thing and go, I'm thinking this at the moment. I'm feeling this at the moment. What should I do? Because 9 times out of 10, whatever you're thinking or feeling in an angry state is going to be the worst decision you can ever make. Yeah. So it's just checking in and having like, so I always go with a loved one or somebody that I've actually gone through a tough time with, whether it's like really close mates, and they'll pull you up like that. And they'll go, right, okay, you're acting like a goose again. Pull your head out and get back on it. Or they're going, oh, okay, you're making this from, you've fallen, like stand-up comedy is a really good example, all right? You can fall in love with a joke. Yeah, emotionally, right? You love it because you think it's absolutely funny, but it gets no laughs whatsoever. Yeah, zero. Yeah, but you're like a dog with a bone. Yeah, and you need that someone to say, you're emotionally attached to this joke. It's going nowhere. Yeah. Get rid of it. Yeah, right. So and that will be another comedian tell you that. So something you trust. So yeah, that's the emotional component about it. And
I know, like, because this is like a podcast for business, right? Yeah, but we're talking now about emotion, and I think it's kind of the thing which I think we should talk about a lot more, because I know that like if you're having challenges emotionally, no matter how much you want to think your way out of it, it's really, really hard, right? Like I've just found that the hard way when like if something quite hard is going on in life, doesn't matter what you think, you're like, it's such a strong feeling emotionally. Like, and I think in business, you've got all these things on actually how to handle specific problems in business, but not actually the state or, and how you handle the bad times.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I just had one of the last clients I had in today was a leader for a company, and they were going through a really highly stressful time. Like this guy was at breaking point. He had tears in his eyes and everything like that, and he was burnt out. But he could actually intellectualize the whole lot. He'll go, I know if I do this, this, and this process will happen. And it was great. But he was a broken man. And so I thought, okay, so one thing that I asked him to focus on and we get clear on is what his values are. Right. Okay, so his values were family, loyalty, trust. All right, those things there. And because now we're going to link it to an emotional component. So what I said to him, I go, okay, so let's just gauge each of these. How are you at the moment out of 10? Like, where are you with loyalty, family, and especially love to yourself? And it was like 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10. So it amounted to like it was 7 out of 30. Right. Of is where he's operating from an emotional state. So then the question, so the question was, how do we actually tap into, how do we gain some control in a situation where you feel like you've got no control whatsoever? And what I'm looking for is, how do we make it from a 3 out of 10 to a 4 out of 10? What's one thing that we can do really slowly?
That's good.
Yeah, and it's a really simple little thing, and anybody can do that. It's just going, instead of, because what you're going to try to do is, when you're really tired or you're burnt out on there, the opposite of that is, how do I feel great? Yeah, and that's a silly thing. All I want to know is how do you not get down any further? That's what I want. Yeah. And, let's at least maintain this level, because you're still alive and you're still able to function. Yeah, sure. Yeah. But how do we slowly bring you out of that? Yeah. And it's so from an emotional point of view, I think if we tapped into what our values are, and we start to honour them, then we can bring that up really, really quickly. Like I'm pretty strong on my values. I know what mine are. I operate from the values of connection, education, and humour. Yeah. So everything in my life has those 3 pillars in it. Yeah. So doing a podcast, it's up there, and then
up there with all 3.
Yeah. So when I go through a downward spiral, I go, okay, am I connecting with myself really well? What am I learning in this lesson? What have I done in the past to learn to get myself out of this? And what's the funny shit in this bad situation? Sure, and if I can laugh at it, then I'm halfway out. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it's little things like that. So yeah, that's because what you're dealing with Chris, is with Vero, is basically you're looking at a better digital customer experience at the end of the day, isn't it? Like how to connect with your customers and all that kind of stuff, which is an emotional component to it.
Yeah, well, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, I think we.
Did you like that lead in there, Chris?
Very good. But not to the level of seriousness we were just discussing, but yeah, I mean, definitely. And I really like everything you were saying there. But I think definitely with customer experience, it's a big part of it is how the customer reacts to what the business is doing, like all their interactions with the business, their interaction with the core product the business is making, their interaction with support, all those things. And I mean, every individual is going to have a different reaction based on lots of things, their emotional state, what they're experiencing at the time. So I mean, that's certainly an interesting element in that if you're designing a customer experience or you've got an ideal customer experience you're aiming for, I mean, there's an element that is outside your control. So you've got to roll with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because you're coming into a new era. You're coming into a new realm. And Alex, you are as well with Web Profits as well, where we're looking at a digital customer experience. So we're talking about bots, we're talking about automated emails, we're talking about all that kind of stuff. Some research that's come out from America just lately, bad customer service or bad customer interactions in the US cost companies over $62 billion a year.
Seems like quite a lot.
Yeah, that's huge, right? That's from either people dealing with bots and they don't want to deal with bots anyway, emails that go astray, or just speaking to an automated telephone system and things like that go pear-shaped, and it's costing. That's how much they're losing customers. So I suppose one part of what Vero does is try to pick up so it's a better level of service. And I remember you spoke about when I heard you speak the other day. It was a great example of what happened with the credit card situation that you went through, and that was. Do you mind sharing that again?
I mean, the example was I closed a credit card, which I did on the phone, which is fine. But I would have preferred to have done it myself in the app or whatever.
Yep.
Anyway, so that bit was fine, but then it was just the flow and process was, despite being closed, I started getting mail saying I owed $10. Which is fine as well. But the problem was I couldn't then log in anymore because the account had been closed on that system clearly. But it was somewhere. I owed $10 somewhere. Yeah. So I couldn't get in. So I didn't actually know, what to do. So I guess I could have just, in the end I was like, well, if I just pay the old BPay number, hopefully it'll work. Yeah. Which it did do. That was after a couple of months. But, I rang up at some point and then they were confused and that was confusing. And it was almost like I didn't exist in two of the three systems that there were. So the thing that, I don't know, was linked to the mail system, that was doing one thing, and then the help center and the actual online system were doing something else. And I mean that was really what my talk about was the other day. And I think in terms of my understanding of the problems, I mean, if when we started Vero, we're probably on the cusp, or certainly for the first few years, but a lot of it was about enabling businesses to create a digital experience and just get online. And if you think about it, having a website is the basis of your digital customer experience. If you don't have a website, that's bad. And there's been then it's just layers on top of that, right? It's like, you got a website, what about your digital customer support? What about your messaging, bots, et cetera, et cetera? I actually think what we're really interested in as a company, I mean, fundamentally, we're helping people do messages. So something that every business needs to do if they have an online presence to varying degrees. And so it's just a fundamental business tool. I think what has changed is that each company is using so many of these tools and suites to deliver a customer experience that it's actually getting pretty messy, and the cost of maintaining all of these SaaS products and trying to link them all together is really high, and it's really difficult. And that's how you end up with the scenario I described, where I can imagine if you're a big organization, it's super hard to get all these systems to talk together, have all the information in the right place. And so I think the next wave is kind of a paring back, or companies investing the right engineering resources in building their internal systems the customer has a great experience. How
do you do that, Chris? If I've got a business, I am vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
And I need to get online, I need to make dollars, and then I'm speaking to the next 5 salespeople going, yep, you're absolutely fixing my problem. But they're not going to be communicating to each other. I've wasted half my money and all that. How do I make that decision of where do I go? How do I do this?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it's a shift that's happening in the market, and is summarized as, I think people now have a pretty good idea of what a digital experience looks like, or what the pillars of that are. As I was talking about, like, website, messaging, help, support, phone, all those things.
Yep.
And I think the shift is more from saying, well, either we'll buy everything off the shelf, or we'll buy off the shelf these big black box systems, and moving to a model where people internally have an engineer or have someone technical involved in maintaining all those systems. So my point is, it's a progression and it's a trickle down, and the companies that are feeling the pain I'm describing are not going to be people just starting out. I mean, if you just need to get online and build a Squarespace site because you don't have any web presence at all.
Yep.
I mean, that's your first priority. But when you scale and get to a level of maturity where, like my credit card example, you're a huge company, a lot of internal systems, perhaps the internal governance control around those systems is weak because they're all black box systems bought by different teams. I think what companies are going to want to start doing is investing in some team that sort of wrangles all those and brings it back together. And so it'll be a company at a certain level of maturity, and they'll want to invest in it because the cost of maintenance, the current situation, will end up being more expensive than the cost of either building it yourself or investing in engineers to integrate these systems from the word go, or buy the right systems that aren't black boxes and talk together.
Just because there's some people that are going to be listening that had not been there the other day, well, actually the majority.
Sure.
And so the concept which you're talking about is called customer ops, right?
Well,
which
that's
is based
my terminology for it.
Well, I mean, let's use the terminology, right? And it's kind of about like, well, how about if you explain it? Like, it's like...
Well, I think that historically, sort of just going over what I was describing before, and maybe even to your situation, and tell me if this is getting into too much detail on how the software industry has changed, in my opinion. But way back in the day, you had internal IT teams, and they would buy software off the shelf. So you'd pay $100 up front, you get a CD, you'd install it, and that IT team would then be responsible for making sure that software ran, so that the people inside the company could use the software. And then software as a service came along, sort of 15, probably 20 years ago now. And what it changed was it said, well, we'll run the software and you can just access it via a web browser. So the reason this is good is that if you're a company, you don't have to pay the IT operations team anymore to run the software.
Yep.
And the second reason it's good is that you don't have to shell out the $100 up front, because the SaaS company said, well, actually, we'll charge you month on month on month. So it's almost like they're funding, if you will, in my opinion. It's like a loan to the customer in a sense. So as a customer, you're going, great, well, now I can buy this software that I don't have to shell out as much capital up front for. That's a win. And I don't have to pay an IT operations team ongoing, so I can pay a fraction of that to the company. Brilliant. And phenomenal. And Salesforce pioneered this, and Salesforce is an amazing company. They've done very, very well. And I think what has happened on the back of that is you've got heaps of SaaS companies, been a huge explosion, and that's awesome. And it has meant that the people that I'm going to call the knowledge workers, but say the marketing team, support team, whatever, they just buy whatever tool feels best to them. So obviously they're picking tools that have a better product experience, better UX, because they're easier to use, so they buy them. And they don't have to worry about how to run the IT operations, because that's all handled by the SaaS company. But I think what's happening, and I think maybe this is still early in the stage, early in the process, is that when a company gets to a certain level of maturity and has, well, a few things have changed, but one is when they have enough SaaS products going on, all of a sudden, they're not naturally going to talk to each other really, really well. I don't think it's super in the vendor's interest to make that happen. Now, certainly the legacy SaaS providers have tried to keep their own walled garden rather than integrating. So you've now got this problem where none of your systems talk, so you've got to hire engineers, IT operations, to start stitching it together. And so we're back to, so it's actually, the cost is coming back. And so the cost is more, because in theory, you're paying these SaaS companies to run the stuff, and now you've hired someone to pull them together, like your $500,000 example, $500 million example.
You like that one.
But it's a great example.
Yeah.
And so what I think may happen in the future is enough companies will have been through this cycle to say, well, it actually was important to have IT operations involved from a governance and decision-making point of view, although it was frustrating from we were wasting our time on stuff that's not core to our business.
Yep.
So it'll just look different in the future. And my hunch is that those engineers that are responsible for that department will be involved early on in the purchasing decision for these knowledge teams to make sure the systems aren't black box walled gardens, and that they play nicely with each other. And then the other layer to that I think has changed is, everyone's in the cloud now. So they're used to buying componentized, is that a word? But
yeah, sure, it is today.
You're making up a lot of
a lot of great words.
great words.
And so people are used to buying in that way, and I think that'll play into the hand of this model that I'm talking about, because you'll be looking for systems that do their bit really well, have very open integrations that lets them integrate with each other. And then the other aspect is that a lot of businesses now are just purely digital, or digital is a huge component of what they do. So they have their own internal software that they have built themselves, and that needs to integrate with all these SaaS products as well. So the open systems need to know that, and respect that from the word go. And I think the current generation of SaaS products, a lot of them don't. So that's what I think is happening. And so customer operations is basically, summarizing the ethos of a company that would invest in this IT operations as the future has it. and really value that.
I liked like the part which I took away from that, because
Yeah.
obviously I don't have a software company. I tried to make software, I failed. So obviously like it wasn't as good as. Well, I didn't realize.
It's highly competitive too.
Yeah, well, yeah. I wouldn't say we're a runaway success yet. So yeah.
I didn't. But we'll have to come back to that. But I didn't realize that there's a thing called a product manager. Like I never knew what a product manager was until after I failed at software development. And product manager, the person that translates stakeholder requirements to what a developer actually understands.
Yeah.
So I tried to just, I found that was quite hard to speak to a developer, not knowing kind of anything about that, right? But I took away out of that talk was there's like the product, and then there's the customer experience.
Yeah.
The customer experience is equally as important as the product.
Absolutely.
So it could be software, it could be anything, right? So there's the thing that somebody will buy, but then there's all the parts around it.
Yeah.
And that I thought was such a great concept to think about in terms of business, right? Because you spend so much time actually optimizing the product and, just trying to focus on the product, but there's also this bigger part of like the experience of actually trying to speak with somebody about a problem.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Or the customer service components or the sales experience and the onboarding and stuff like that,
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think at some point in history, it was a great customer experience just to have a website, because other people didn't have them. It's like, oh, you're differentiating, you've got a website. Obviously, we're so far past that now. But the point is, the good companies are recognizing that you've really got to invest in your digital footprint and all the aspects of it, as you're saying, Alex, and you got no choice, really.
And I think that's like, it's certainly organizations that are like Amazon, which have really just lifted the expectation of customer service and plus now like everything so like instant that the expectations change. Like it's not the same as it was like 15 years ago. And so now there's completely different expectations.
Yeah.
And on top of that, that there's a lot of authority now in terms of the customer reviews, so there's a lot of stuff online happening at the moment. So then if you get this wrong,
that's true.
There's a big risk that the brand is damaged online, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's certainly like an area which I'm starting to consider a lot more. I considered it before, but I never had like a term, and so it's just, it's something I think that like a lot of organizations are going to have to face as well, Well,
I mean, that's a really good point. It's just obviously you've got public reviews, you've got social media. So if you screwed it up before, despite even that being an absolutely terrible business idea, potentially the next customer wouldn't hear about it. But now there's a much higher chance.
Yeah, so for example, like I can't cancel my credit card. I tried to cancel it, and if there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those reviews online, like, and I'm looking online for,
you're not going to get it.
Thing.
And you look at how much money and time is invested into a feedback mechanism with customers, because you have got Twitter, you've got Facebook, and all that. So as soon as it goes out, it just gets it. I know Nestle, for example, have a team running 24/7, 365 days a year just to look after customer complaints, and that's what they do. So they get onto it really, really quick. They've got their strategies put in place because for them it's about that customer experience. And so now we're looking at a two-prong approach with, and it always has happened with customer experience, is how do we make them feel like they're trusted, they can trust us, they're loved, and they're felt respected in the sales process. But then how do we look after them once things go down? Now, there's a lot of examples, and I'm not going to name businesses because that's not what we're here to do. How the companies that have gone under because they haven't gotten back and answered customer complaints or anything like that. Because the mentality was, well, it's only 5% of our marketplace. But now what's happened on a social media platform is everybody's knowing that, and they're syncing a lot quicker. So the importance that you guys are doing is let's make sure that we do have that customer experience there, that we do have it. We are looking after whenever it does stuff up. Yeah. And how do we do it quickly? So what's your experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, our actual software is just one small part of the arsenal to have a great customer experience, just the messaging slice. But yeah, I mean, I think listening to that story there, obviously it'd be crazy not to jump on those fires, and always would have been. But then now, obviously, it can get in the spotlight very quickly. Yeah, I mean, my experience would be from us with our own customers, and I think one of the things I'm really proud of is that having bootstrapped for so long. I mean, when you're bootstrapping, your customers are your only funding source is another way to look at it.
Yep.
And therefore, we've always had, how could you have anything else but the utmost respect for our customers, because they've certainly, so obviously in the early days, really early days, they really gave us a go when they could have gone with someone much, much larger.
Yeah.
But yeah, we take, I take professionalism really seriously. So if you say you're going to offer a product or do a job, you want to do what you said you're going to do. You want to do it well. And so when something screws up, as things do from time to time, you have to address it, and you have to take ownership of it. And so I'd like to think that that's a value that is ingrained at Vero, and hopefully our customers experience that, because it's certainly something I take very, very seriously. So for me, it's from an ethos point of view, as a human being, that's the right thing to do, and therefore it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Now
for my company.
You're doing it at the level that you're at now, but what happens if your company goes 10x on this?
Sure.
How do you do that then?
Oh, well, I mean, I don't know. I would imagine a lot of it is values driven. Because obviously your support organizations and your sales organization, everyone who's facing the customer they're going to grow. So it's going to be a bigger team.
Yep.
So it really has to be ingrained, as they need to know how important it is to the company. And so I think all that stuff trickles down. I mean, obviously I haven't done it. I don't have a team that's hundreds of people large, but
you've got people working for you around the world as well, haven't you?
Sure. Yeah. So, but yeah, there's we all have trust in each other, and I imagine part of being a good leader is making sure that trust continues to scale as the team gets bigger, and what's the culture and the systems to make that happen. But yeah, for me, it would be about making sure that each one of those people who may be responding to a customer issue at scale, they need to have the same attitude as everyone else, and understand that our company's attitude is you treat the customer with respect, you take ownership, you do something about it internally, and you keep the customer informed.
I love it. It's a real mature, and it's a real authentic approach, which is really nice to hear. It sounds like to me you got a whole lot of cash thrown in and everything was good.
Well, I mean,
that's what the papers always say, right? It's like we got funded, right?
But
we've had we raised the one round of capital a couple of years ago. We've been really, really lucky to have some great investors on board. So one of the big VC firms here in Australia, Squarepeg, they've been awesome. For us, it's been a real period of maturation. I think we've doubled the team essentially since we took that money. And on the one hand, it's surprising that it's not larger than that. On the other hand, there's still a big shift, and we haven't hired anyone for a little while. So that happened over a shorter period than the last nearly 2 years. And so I think for us, a big part of it was learning how to operate at that bigger scale. Mm-hmm. And the reason we raised money, having bootstrapped for so long, there's a number of factors, but as you get more mature as a leader, you as a CEO, hopefully you're better and better at strategy. And for us, it was, we had larger customers. So the system needed to be more scalable, and that was only going to increase. And then going back to my professionalism thing, I mean, you don't want to let your customers down. I'll come back to that. And so we needed to keep pedal to the metal on that front. But then we also wanted to become less serendipitous, is the word I'm going to use. Again, is it a word? I think so.
That's an actual word, yes. I like that word, actually.
About our
can't spell it.
About our marketing, which was, previously we wrote a blog post every week. We did a lot of content. We worked really hard at it.
Yeah, sure.
But I think we were perhaps a little less strategic in terms of like what keywords we were trying to rank for, or how repeatable and scalable is this. We kind of lucked out. I mean, we did an amazing job writing, and Jimmy was on our team, exceptional writer. We worked super hard at it. So we made our own luck in a sense, but we wanted to take all that awesome work we've done and say, okay, well, can we do that 10x? Obviously, we're going to need a bigger team. How do we operationalize that? How do we systematize that? All those things. So that was the other reason to take money. And we just knew that we couldn't really afford to do both of those well without taking money.
Yeah, sure.
And so once we took the money, it was really about actually, starting up or scaling up from essentially, nothing, one person, the marketing side of things, and start to have a system and a mature system there. And then for us also, I think in hindsight, we probably raised a little late. I mean, I wish we'd raised a year earlier. Probably would have been more perfect. We did hit a bunch of scaling challenges in terms of the software we had built, which, it's not surprising. All companies are dealing with tech debt all the time, but obviously it was super frustrating for us and super frustrating for our customers. So we also had to do some work internally to get out of that situation and get the product back to doing what it said it did every time at a really high quality.
Yeah, I'm quite interested in it. How did you actually get out of it? Like.
Oh well, I mean, it goes back to you've got to face up to the hard facts. I mean, that's what we had to do, and I think we probably took us longer than we would have liked to really realize how many challenges we had. But that's because things like it's kind of like a flywheel, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, all we did is as an engineering team said, well, that's obviously the thing we have to focus on. You can't be selling something that's not doing what it says it'll do every time.
Yep.
So we need to focus on that. What are the core problems? Let's go get the learning. So either ask for advice and get people on the team that have that knowledge. Or in our case, we have amazing team members. So part of it was just dedicating the time and resources to go and do it.
Yep.
So we did that, and that's been that was a real journey. And so on the back,
what did you do personally to get out of it? Because now you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders. You've got a company that's up and running, and now you're going through a bit of strife.
Sure.
How did you personally deal with that?
I don't know in that. I don't think I did anything specific. I definitely, you lean on the people. So going back to your mentorship thing, I think in our case, so this is where, I didn't know any mentors who had been through the exact scenario we described.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter. You lean on people for the emotional support. I think it was very stressful at times for sure, because it was just frustrating, or maybe embarrassing is too strong a word, but it's not the position you wanted to be in. And I think for me, raising capital is something I took really seriously. It's not some flippant thing where, oh great, you got lots of money. No, like you've taken money because you believe you can turn that money into more money, essentially.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Or you put it to work to create more value in the world, and money is a representation of that. And for us not to be achieving the goals, in terms of delivering the product we wanted to customers, is really disappointing. So I felt that a lot. And I think the main thing is you start to just question, well, what as the plan we've got, is it working? Is it going to work? Sort of thing. Right?
So first thing you did, right? So you got the money.
Yeah.
What was the first thing? Like, was it just to hire a bunch of people in marketing? Was it to scale up?
Yeah, sure.
Not
all this stuff aligned perfectly either. So some of the scaling stuff we had before we raised, and
that would have caused
through it.
Some of the challenges, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, so when we raised, and even for the first year after that, things were like a lot rosier and a lot more optimistic. And I think so there was a period before we raised where we had some tech challenges, like a year before that. So we worked through those, and then there was a period again after we raised. But more after we raised, it was more about trying to hit the marketing goals that we really felt we should, given the amount of capital we'd raised, and that was just about maturing the team. So obviously we started adding marketing growth team members, and we've had some awesome people join the team.
And was that the first thing? Cool. So now we've got some money.
I think no. We
need to grow.
We did two things in tandem. Oh, well, absolutely. That was the goal. Yeah, and that's what it's all about. So definitely straight away we did that. We also in tandem just beefed out a few of the other parts of the org. So you've got not fat because we're still so small, but you're just doing things properly. You've got a bit more resource to do them better or well. And when you bootstrap, it's just like everything's on fire all the time. Which is probably a sign in itself. Probably shouldn't be like that. But so we did that.
Has it changed now? Is there less fire? So there's less fire? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
so there is hope.
Yeah, there's
just like if you're listening in and there's lots of fire, there's hope. I think the fire has just become bigger or different.
No, I mean, no. I think we'd just bitten off more than we could chew on a lot of axes, and that's why I say I wish we'd raised a year before we did. Because I wouldn't say we've come out the other side fully in terms of achieving the growth goals that we have, but it's starting to. I mean, the first half of this year has been fantastic, and if you ask me again in 6, 9, 12 months, if that continues, then I would say we've come out the other side. It's too early to call that yet, but we're working really hard at it, and I think we have our confidence back. Because we're starting to see that positive feedback loop and have been over the last 6 months. So you're like, okay, actually the shit we're doing is working.
Yeah.
So we keep doing it and have hopefully keep working, right? And that's where we're at now. So I think, there's definitely hope. And I think that the fires are, I feel like in business, as you said at the start, and I heard somewhere else, but yeah, I mean, every day you wake up to problems and you're overcoming those problems. It's like a ladder of problems, if you will. So I think the difference is you want to feel like you're resourced to have a crack at solving the problems. And I think that's where we spread ourselves too thin. That's what I'm saying. If we'd raised a bit earlier, we could have had some of those people on board, had some of that talent in the team that we now have, from a marketing growth point of view, and from an engineering point of view, just a bigger team to handle some of this stuff. and then we wouldn't have spread ourselves as thin, and that would have avoided some of the pitfalls. So
Yep.
you're going to have the problems, but you need to feel like you've got some resources to have a crack at solving the problems.
Absolutely.
But so what happened 6 to 9 months ago? Because obviously, like, there was a period
Yeah.
which kind of sucked,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
then, like you said, like 6 to 9 months ago, things started to go on the up and
well,
up. So what changed? Because obviously, like, you know, I'm sure that everybody like in business will know that feeling where it's a grind to stay still.
Sure.
You're putting all this effort and it's not going anywhere, right? And like that's not why we're in business, right? Like we kind of just want to grow and we want to be positive and happy. And with all that, there's all happiness, right? So what happened to change?
Well, I think just time, honestly. I mean, so I think we
So you just waited?
I mean, and I caveat all of this with, we're not yet a raging success again. So I'm, being very, I'm very aware of that. Like I still feel the pressure now, and I still feel the grind, and we've got, we're a million miles from where I want to be, is the point I'm making.
Yep.
So, but in terms of where we are, I'm proud of where we are versus where we were a year ago.
Yep.
And so I can talk about that. And I think that I'd like to think the things that we were doing as soon as we recognized things weren't going great were the right things, but it takes time to turn them around.
Are you able to talk about any of the things which you were like, look, that was a problem in that, or
if you just take engineering as a like, let's say there's a part of your product where you go, well, that's not holding up to the scale, we need to rebuild it, and we know how to rebuild it. It's not going to happen overnight. Like it might take 3 to 4 months to rebuild it, right? To rebuild it really well to withstand the scale of the future. And so, like, you can't, even if the plan is correct, until you built it, you're not going to have a clue if the net result will be a product that is delivering, the happiness you need. So part of it's just time. We had a list of things we needed to get through. A lot of them engineering stuff. From a marketing point of view, we as I said, we were just a team of one. So or not even one, like half of my time, because there's so many fires going on, and having someone who's the head of marketing. And Linda's amazing, and then starting to grow her team, and actually being able to build out the process so you can publish content multiple times a week and get it in front of your customers, and it looks good and feels on brand, and you're tackling the right topics. And then is that all strategic? Like all the stuff you do every day for your customers, right? But building those internal systems from nothing takes time as well.
So did you stop doing anything, or did you just continue just doing everything the same, but just it took time for it to all just to settle? Or so was there a point where you said like, hey, we bit off too much?
Oh yeah, sure.
I'm going to actually say 50% that we know we want to do, we're just not going to do, so we can do the other 50% better.
Yeah, sure.
Because I know, pretty much every entrepreneur I know, and pretty much every person who runs a business I know, they just have 1,000 ideas.
Yeah.
So I would say that becomes pretty dangerous when you have 1,000 ideas and then you just got funded, right? Because now you're just like, I got money.
Yeah.
And I think I can do all these things now, know?
Yeah.
And I don't have that experience yet, so that's why I'm asking you, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think we having bootstrapped for so long, I was really cognizant of not doing that, and it wasn't.
You seem like a humble guy who's quite methodical. So
I hadn't trained myself I had never had a lot of money, so I mean, I suppose the alternative could have been like, yes, let's go do everything. But I think just the problems the business threw up over the oncoming year and a half. I had to solve those problems first, and they were more challenges and building things up, rather than going crazy.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely. I mean, I think from a marketing point of view now, it's been like, let's we're all in. Like, we've got to try stuff. Let's keep doing what we've done in the past, do it better, do it more systematically, more strategically. So that stuff, I think, is an example of, we got some money, now we could do some stuff we'd wanted to do for a long time. And I think it just would have been nice to have started it a bit earlier, because it just does take time. So I think that stuff aligns with what you're saying. And then the other stuff where we did stop was more from an engineering point of view. I think we've gotten better at talking to the customers again, but also not just building everything that comes across our radar, and being much more clear about what is the 1 or 2 or 3 things, not the 18 things that the product does exceptionally well, so well that you would buy this thing even if the other things are a bit, they're still catching up, because these things 10x solve your problem anyway. Solve your problem 10x.
I mean, that's a journey to get to that point, isn't it? To say, actually, wow, we've got 50 things we could do. Yeah. how do we focus?
Yeah,
You know,
but
like,
I think
focus is like the hardest thing for anyone, right? Like who wants to just do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Which is every business owner.
Well, sure, yeah. And
Founder, co-founder, whatever.
Totally. Yeah, no, but I think that is the you know, if I was starting something new again, I mean that is product management. What I'm describing as well is whittling that down. So, you know, it was me learning to be a better product manager, leader in that sense.
Yep.
And then I think but it is everything. I mean, I think when you're starting a company, the more time you can take to determine that the strategy is correct. I mean, you're never going to get it flawless. There's a hunch, as you said. You just have to crack at it, and people actually tell you wrong, even if you are right, probably.
Yeah.
All the great things started that way, they say. But yeah, definitely have confidence in the 1, 2, or 3 things, and spend your time building the case for that rather than trying to do 100 things. And for me, it always just comes back to, you know, this is like your life, like your time, and raise money, don't raise money, you know, whatever. Like, it's your time, your money, your resources that you're investing in this as the founder of a business. So, like, you have to have confidence just for your own sanity. And I think that's the hardest thing. Is it's easy to just go convince yourself that, like you said, you fall in love with an idea. It's very easy to do, like a joke.
Yeah.
It's dangerous. Yeah. And having mentors or having a system to research, to customer research, looking at hard data, whatever it may be, like that's the bit you need to do, and you need to break yourself down. It's actually going like, let's be skeptical of my own enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Because 99 times I'm wrong. But I've got to find I only got to get it once right, as Warren Buffett says. So it's about whittling it down until you've found something that's legitimate, and then you have to act on that with confidence.
There's so many areas which he's talking about. He's talking about actually how to fail. He's talking about how to focus. I don't even know just where to go with this conversation. Tony, you got to...
Chris, you're an amazing human being. You really are. The things that you've come up and said, you're talking about being... A lot of people say about being an authentic person, and I think that really resonates with you, being authentic and standing by it, because you get a whole lot of funding. It's not always rosy, but you've got this integrity about you where you go, and this professionalism where you're just going to keep on being really tenacious and just breaking through all the little hurdles that you have to get to where you want.
Yeah.
And that's to be admired. And I think what you've done is, I think somehow when you were born, you would have had an ego, and I think you would have sold it on Gumtree or something like that, because there is no element of ego about you, which is absolutely beautiful. And you're an intelligent person as well. I've got to ask, are you an avid reader? Because you come across as an avid reader.
Yeah, well, so I was talking to Alex about this recently, actually. But I think my journey with reading is I used to read heaps, and then I started a company and I read far less. And so to go back to reading heaps has been a really concerted effort. This last 2 years in particular, I've been really trying to build that muscle back up to the level that I think I'm capable of. And I don't know. I think there's just when you're reading, it's humbling because you realize how much there is to know in the world, and it's an exciting thought that the amount you can learn, right? So to have to train yourself to have a passion for that learning, and because some of the books that you want to read are not, you wouldn't say they're fun. It's like running, like running is not, or any exercise. You're doing it for a long-term benefit, not necessarily because in the moment it's like eating chocolate's better than running. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But so I'm good at that part, by the way.
Well, who is it? And been really trying to get into it again, like I used to, and it's been great because it also gives you perspective that like your problems, either aren't that big, certainly aren't the only problems in the world, or are problems people have dealt with before. I think that's the other thing. I like, I've been trying to read more history, and you realise that people have been smart and struggling with things for 100,000 years.
History is quite interesting, and I'd ask you what you have read, because the thing with that thing, patterns repeat throughout history. Trends, patterns, they always do. We think we're doing something new. I mean, like even like the information era that we're in at the moment, the IT era, we're thinking, oh, geez, it's so dramatically changed and everything like that. But it's just another era of change and evolution. That's all it is. And people react the same way, where they actually resist change. They're scared of change, and then slowly they fall into it. Then it's the new norm. And once everybody gets on the ones at the end of the bell curve actually pick up. They go, oh, better start a new trend. Yeah. Right. And that's all it is. But history will teach you that. So what it sounds like, you're reading history and going, I can relate to that now. There's something like, is there any books that you've read where you've gone, geez, that's really helped me out in a tough spot or inspired you to be who you are today?
I I mean, I think all reading does that to a degree.
Yeah.
I mean, if your answer is just what books I read that I liked in recent history, certainly there's a book called, I think it's called The Scottish Enlightenment or The Great Scottish Enlightenment.
Right.
Yeah, it's like on Charlie Munger's favourite book list or something like that. So go look it up if I got the name wrong. But that was really good. It was definitely probably a bias take, but it sort of started in maybe the 1750s, and it's actually probably before that, but it's about how there are a lot of great ideas and people like Adam Smith, David Hume, who were all congregated between Glasgow and Edinburgh, and a lot of their ideas have really influenced the Western world, certainly. And that's why I say it's not biased, but like it's a take on things. But it was really fascinating, and just to see the tendrils from that. I mean, where I grew up was a place called Camden. It's in the Macarthur region. Macarthur was a Scotsman. And essentially helped kickstart the Australian economy with the merino industry that started out there. Anyway, so all that was in this book. It was in this book.
That would have been fascinating. So you would have had a link
at
to
the
it
end of this
away.
book. But I was like, wow, there you go. So things like that, because you kind of seeing something very local and how it's linked back to something.
Well,
really
it was an
big.
interesting era too around that time, because you had capitalism coming out and really making a big dent on the planet. But then they were talking about a humanistic approach to it all as well. They were going, what's the human element in this? I understand we're trying to get more dollars out of here, but at what price, what cost? And that era there really captured it quite well. And we're still living off those philosophies now.
Absolutely,
yeah. Like Adam Smith is absolutely amazing. He comes up with some great quotes on motivation. He came up with that one quote. I don't know if you remember. He talked about people will reject orders and direction,
right?
Or they'll repel,
right?
And they'll actually get attracted towards motive and objective,
right?
So if you give somebody the motive or the reason why that you're doing it, that's how you get somebody to move forward. And that was 300 years ago.
Yeah.
And nothing's really changed. Here you go. Let's go some rapid fire questions for you. We'll start off with Chris. One thing on your bucket list.
I want to learn to fly. I'm a classic entrepreneur answer.
Fly a plane, right?
Yeah, like a light aircraft. Yeah.
Just chicken.
Oh, yeah.
Alex, one thing on your bucket list?
Oh, this is about Chris, isn't it?
Nah, mate, we're going straight to you as well. You know how you love these. Yeah, come on.
Like to do the wingsuits, like into a snowboard.
No, not for me.
No,
Yeah.
Amazing.
But you want to fly.
Yeah.
A plane.
Chris is all about safety.
Or just science, I think. Yeah.
All right, here you go. Favorite superhero and why?
I never really, probably Batman. I don't know. I never really consumed much of it when I was a kid. But Batman, I'll go with.
Yeah, they would have had that out at Camden.
Oh no, definitely. I don't know, but I didn't read the comic books or whatever, and not Spider-Man. I don't know. I don't think he's much chop. But we'll go with Batman.
Okay, Alex, favorite superhero?
I like Iron Man. Just because how good's his house and his cars and stuff like that, and it's just like a tech guy. He's got all the gadgets.
Iron Man and
stuff.
Batman are similar in that they're in theory normal people who.
Cool. Yeah, I think Iron Man's
they all
got
are,
cooler
though,
tech. His tech was cool. Yeah. I'm just too realistic with my fantasies.
I love how you love the guy because he's all tech related. One person you could invite to dinner. They can be alive or they can be dead.
I don't know. It'd be great to have a chat to Bill Gates. Obviously from a business point of view, he's done some exceptional stuff.
Yep.
And then he's clearly his attitude, his moral philosophy is exceptional. The stuff he's doing with his wife, Melinda, they're amazing.
Yeah.
So that would be a very wide-ranging conversation, and huge respect for them.
Yeah, nice. I like that. Yeah. All right. Last question here. First thing you do in the morning?
Oh, I wake up, have a shower.
I wake up. It's like wake.
That's the first thing.
That's the way I answered it too.
No, I'm not. I don't have a huge morning routine. Have coffee. I don't usually have breakfast and go to work.
Nice.
Pretty much every morning.
Now, Chris, thank you so much for coming on board today. It's been absolutely awesome chatting to you. Now, look, there's going to be people out there that actually want to get in contact with you and either, pick your brain, use your business, do whatever it is. How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, you can check out our website, which is GetVero, GETV for Victor, ERO.com.
Yep.
And then my email is chris@thatdomain.
Yep, nice. Now, Chris, are you planning to do some more public speaking? Because you are a fantastic and exceptional public speaker. So are you doing any more gigs?
Thank you.
No, you are, absolutely.
There's nothing lined up. I think I was saying to Alex, the last year and a half just been super hectic, heads down, being a CEO.
Yep.
So it'll really depend. If the next 6-9 months go the way we want, then I should have a bit more time and
Yep.
hopefully some more wisdom to share. I think part of it is, it's good to have real stories to share. So,
100%. Your story is amazing. Look, and Alex and I both attended that last one. It was great. So if there's somebody out there, an organisation that wants to hire you as a speaker, would you be open to that at the moment?
you can get in touch.
Cool. No, that's good to know, because a lot of people don't actually advertise that, and I think your story is worth sharing. I'm sure there's a lot of companies out there that will want to, take you on board and get
time dependent, but feel free to email.
I think that the better thing is speak to him about his software. If you're a corporate,
absolutely,
So just quickly, so what size organisation is ideal for you?
So customers, in terms of the size of the org, we definitely have customers that are tiny, but the mainstay would be once you've got 25 people up to 200, 300, that would be the ideal size. So you're either graduating off something like MailChimp, or you're looking for an alternative to Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Would be if you're in that bucket, check us out. You never know.